This segment of the Bass Kayak and Beers podcast is supported in part by Douglas Outdoors, serious rods for serious anglers. Go to douglasoutdoors.com and check out their new lineup of Era rods that retail under $100. Norsk Lithium, the lithium battery that you need is just a click away. Go to norsklithium.com and check out some of the lightest lithium batteries in the market with the best warranty in the business. Mariner Sales, located in the heart of the DFW Metroplex, Mariner Sales has the largest inventory of kayak and kayak accessories in North Texas. You can also shop online at marinersales.com. All right, what is up, everyone? I hope you can all hear me. That StreamYard thing is acting a little bit funky the last couple of times here on the podcast. So if you're watching and listening, please give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. I think you can. But anyways, welcome once again to the Bass Kayak and Beers podcast. It's always it's your boy Armando. This is the Real Life. We have a live show every Thursdays at 7:30 Central Time, and usually we talk to tournament anglers, content creators, or people who just love fishing to talk about different things. Thank you, Johnny Maddox, saying it sounds good. Thank you, Johnny. I appreciate it. So like I said, we usually talk about bass fishing, kayak fishing. Today's episode, I got Jessi Diaz, a great guy from South Florida, and he recently got the new Bonafide XTR130 with the power pole move bow mount motor. And the reason why I wanted to get him on the podcast, other than he's a great guy and we talked on social media and on chat groups a bunch of times, and I love his social media content creation. By the way, you can follow him on Instagram under Bass Patriot. But the reason why I wanted to get him on is to talk a little bit about that, because recently on my YouTube channel, I did a breakdown video of a client in Mariner Sales who actually had a custom build Bonafide XTR130, and it was like over $17,000 in it. And it had that brand new bow mount trolling motor by PowerPole called the Move. I think it's something like a $4,000 or $5,000 trolling motor, which not everybody can afford, but I had a ton of questions about it. But I really couldn't answer it because I haven't tried it. It's not my kayak, and it's not easy to get somebody to lend you a $17,000 kayak to make a video of it. But good enough, Jessi got both, and he's been rigging and catching giant fish out of Florida. So I was like, hey, Jessi, you want to come on the podcast and talk about it? Because I got a bunch of YouTube viewers asking me questions about both the Bonafide XTR130 and especially that new power pole move trolling motor. So Jessi was kind enough to come up to the podcast. So I'm going to have him on. I'm going to talk about him. He's going to talk a lot about what he loves about the Bonafide XTR130. I keep saying Bonafide XTR130. You all know what I mean. And the power pole move, what he likes, maybe what he doesn't like, maybe what he thinks he can improve, and overall thoughts on it, and give you a little bit of knowledge before you guys pull the plug on any of those. You know, we always suggest if you're going to buy a kayak, demo it. Try to get a demo day. A lot of kayak shops out there have a demo day or have a lake or pond nearby where you can demo. A lot of them have people on the pro staff or their fishing team. And one of the responsibilities of being on a pro staff or fishing team, like, for example, I'm on the Mariner Sales. Shout out to Duke Tran, everybody, Mariner Sales. So every now and then they'll call you and says, hey, we can't do a demo for another couple of months. We got somebody interested in, for example, I used a Pro Angler one PA 360 with a NK 180 Pro. And they asked me, they kind of want to demo it. You know, could you meet them and, you know, so they can try it out at a certain lake and stuff like that. And I've done it a couple of times. I did it for the Old Town PDL 120, and the gentleman ended up buying it. So that's one way. So if you're interested in getting, whether it's the Bonafide or any kayak, always try to demo it. Get research. Don't always rely on reviews of pro staffers or content creators that are associated. with the brand because obviously it's going to be a little bit biased, especially if there's monetization involved in it. But yeah, demo it. So, anyways, without further ado, let's bring in Jessi Diaz. Oh, by the way, if you have any questions, please put it in the comment section. We'll try to get them answered. If you have any questions for Jessi about the Bonafide XTR or the Power Pole move, please put in the comment section. Sorry, Jessi, how you doing, man?
What's up, my man? How you doing?
Pretty good, man. I finally get somebody with a thick Latino accent other than myself because I get self-conscious about it.
I appreciate
it. But now that I got one of my brothers here with that thick accent,
I hear you.
You know, it brings me confidence. I feel at home now.
I got you.
How you been, man?
Good, man. Can't complain. How have you been?
Pretty good. I finally got on the water, man. I haven't gotten on the water like almost very few times. Once for a photo shoot and video shoot we were doing for Mariner Sales with Guillermo Gonzalez and a few of the pro staffers. And man, other than that, I think I did a tournament too. And I sucked at it. So yeah, this is only like my third or fourth time this year, which kind of sucks. Usually, if you ask me any other year by May, beginning of May, how many times you've been gone on the water? So like, man, I can't count. But this time, unfortunately, speaking, with one hand I can count. So I'm quickly gonna change that though.
Yeah.
How about you? Have you been getting on the water lately?
Lately, yeah, it was a slow start as well to the year. I had sold my kayak late last year. I used to have an autopilot, and I sold it, and I wasn't doing any fishing. And I got into the Bonafide, I want to say early March, and I was in the process of rigging it up and whatnot. So, I've been out on the kayak now. I would say probably a handful of times, but yeah, like you said, I'm trying to ramp it up now.
So we're about. Well, let's start before we dive into the Bonafide and the trolling motor. Tell us a little bit about you, Jessi. Where do you live? What got you into fishing and everything else in between?
So I live in South Florida. I live close to the Miami area, just north of there. I didn't fish growing up, to be quite honest with you. Not even saltwater fishing, which is a surprise because everybody likes the saltwater fish down here.
Yeah.
I wasn't into any of that, but somewhere along the line, maybe in my late 20s, I started, some bank fishing and whatnot. And, into my 30s, I would, obviously do the bank fishing. I'd go out on some charter trips to go, bass fishing and whatnot. And it was, I would say, right around the time of COVID or right before it or right around it, I got into the whole kayak scene.
And haven't looked back since, I imagine.
Yeah, no, I haven't looked back.
What made you go from the Old Town? What you had, the autopilot or the PDO? What did you say?
I had the autopilot 136.
What made you switch from Old Town to Bonafide XTR?
To be honest, I don't have anything bad to say about the Old Towns. Old Town makes great rigs, but for me personally, when I saw the Bonafide, specifically the XTR, I just saw that platform, that design, and I instantly fell in love with it. I started doing some research on it, but I came to find out, and it's what I believe is I don't think there's anything like it in the kayak scene right now. That design, that type of platform is pretty unique, and I feel that it's going to fit my style with with that standing deck, which is essentially what sold me on the kayak.
Yeah, I bet. When you talk about research, so for the benefit of people that are watching or listening on MP3 format when we upload it into podcast stream, what kind of research do you recommend people doing before they invest on a kayak? Like what's your version of doing the right research to make sure you're getting the right investment?
It's a good question. I mean, it's you gotta take personal stock into how you fish, what you're looking to do, how you're looking to transport it. This Bonafide is a heavy kayak. I would argue it's probably one of the heaviest kayaks out there. So you're gonna want to look at that. You're gonna want to look at your transportation options when you're getting into this type of. If you want to do the homework into this type of kayak, Um, yeah, I mean, and like me personally, what I was, I went on their website. I reached out to individuals that I saw like on social media that were getting into the kayak, and I was just looking for some brief feedback on, what they thought of the kayak. YouTube is a great source. A lot of people go onto
Yeah.
YouTube and watch videos and reviews and whatnot. So I try to watch a lot of that content, and I try to decipher exactly what it is that I want, don't want on it, or what I like and don't like on it, and then ultimately I'll come to a point where I'm like, all right, well, maybe this is the right decision or whatnot.
What what's your go to resources? AliEx Figueroa fishing or somebody
I've
else?
seen I've seen his videos, man. I've seen his videos. I've seen the video he has with Chad Hoover. I know
Yeah.
Chad Hoover's come out with some videos. There's plenty of people that have come out with videos. I personally, before I get a kayak, you brought up a good point about testing out kayaks.
Mhm.
Where I live, we don't have that. I don't really have a kayak store. I would have to try. I actually traveled to Central Florida to pick up my kayak.
How long do you have
So
to drive?
I had to drive about 3 hours. I had
Oh
to,
man.
yeah, I went to travel country up in Central Florida. Great people, and but see, I don't have that here in Southeast
Yeah.
Florida. So I like to watch a lot of videos of how people have the kayak set up, and I try to envision what I do, and I try to mix and match that with what they have and see how that goes and what I would do differently, and I go off of that.
Yeah, and then you brought up a good point when we started talking about this. You said think about what's your style of fishing and where do you fish and all that. Because I think a lot of times people just think, oh, this is the coolest thing ever,
Right.
and you can apply that to anything
Anything.
in commerce. But when we're talking about kayak fishing, it'll be like, oh man, this is great, this is beautiful, or all the shiny stuff. You buy it, turns out it's not really what you needed. It's not the best option for you based on where you fish, what type of waters, what type of fishing are you going to do. So that's and also, and I think it's important to understand. I think a lot of people don't really think about this. It's also your health. Like,
Mhm.
can you know throw in 150-pound kayak on the back of your truck or
Right.
car top it?
Right.
Like, 'cause it'll get old quickly. I
Very
mean,
quickly.
it gets to a point. It's like I'm tired of getting up at
Yep.
6 a.m. and loading and unloading this 150-pound plastic boat. It takes a toll on you. So I think there's gotta be that honest conversation about where's it, what, and also what is your budget.
Right. It's
How
another good
long
point.
can you,
Budget.
if you suffer from like back problems, can you afford getting a cheap kayak that 2 hours into, like 30 minutes into it, your back is going to be hurting? Or do you need to invest in a kayak that's going to have a more comfortable seat, but therefore it's going to be a more expensive
Absolutely.
kayak? I think all those things weigh in, and more than just the flashy stuff and the cool stuff that a lot of people think.
Yep. Absolutely.
What draw you mentioned the
Florida Gators.
you
No.
know into what is it? I got Hector Figueroa says Florida Gators are savage. Was that part of the decision, getting a bigger platform so people so keep Gators away? Is that a real issue over there
I
for
thought
you?
I thought he was making a reference to the Florida Gators football team.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah, Florida. I mean, yeah, we deal with Gators obviously, but no, that wasn't really a decision that I had in mind with getting the kayak. Um, the two things for me were I wanted more space on the kayak, which is something that people have been messaging me on my Instagram, and they're always asking me like, what is it that I like about the kayak, and pretty much it's the space of the kayak. The kayak is very modular and it's very stable. The standing deck, like I said earlier, really sold me. I have tons of space up there to stand up, a lot of balance. I could step down off of it, and speed. But the speed comes into when we talk about the motor.
Yeah, basically. 'Cause, I mean, that is a big barge, and I say that in a complimentary way. Like you said, it's just
Yeah,
big platform. There's no way. It's not like their version of a like a speedster, like their power. PWR129, I think it is, which that is definitely builds for speed. You put an NK300 on that thing flies. What do you do for transport? Do you trailer it? Do you car top it?
Yeah, I trailer it.
Okay,
there's no way I'm manually unloading and loading that thing off my truck on a bank or something.
Yeah, that's crazy. I know. What is Gerald
I mean,
Smith?
Could I do it? Yeah, but it'll take a toll.
Yeah. Gerald, shout out to Gerald Smith, 3 the Hard Way. You can follow him on Instagram. He has one. I think it's on the back of his truck. I'm like, dude, I don't know how you do it.
Kudos to him.
That is. I lent my trailer to a buddy of mine. Shout out to Jacob Jenkins. Hope you're doing well, buddy. If you're watching or listening, he moved to Utah, so I got it back. And for that year that I didn't have, here he goes. Gerald's on the comment sections. We'll get to that in a minute. So for that year that I loaned him the trailer while he was getting sorted out with his back, dude, I'm loading and unloading a PA14 out of the back of my truck. It was just like, it's getting old. Finally, I got it back because he moved to Utah, but dude, it was bad. I was like, yeah, this is getting old. Like, you think it's like nothing, but so let's see what Gerald Smith, he says, so much space activities. That's true. Gerald, how does it, if you're watching, I should have sent a link to Gerald to join us. But Gerald, if you're in the comments, let us know. Do you car top? Do you put it on the back of your truck or do you trailer it? And if you do, I think he trailers it. No, puts it on the back of his truck or car top it. I can't remember.
It's a heavy kayak, man.
Yeah, I was driving to a client the other day, and I thought it was Gerald. I saw a minivan that had a car top and XTR130. I'm like, good Lord, how the heck does he get that up there, whoever it was? But anyways, Hector Figueroa says, in case I wouldn't fish out of a River 129 platform, more likely a Hobie, bigger, taller, and safer for those waters. So how much did you spend on the trailer?
On the trailer, I purchased the trailer for like about $900.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah. I mean, I did some work on it. I spent like, I would say probably another 200 and change on the trailer. Some stuff I did to it, but the trailer itself ran me $900. It's a brand new trailer.
Oh, nice. So Gerald says on the comments that right now he's on the back of his truck, but he's getting a trailer. Yeah, I would think so. Yeah. It's one thing to consider with the Bonafide XTR130. Like, if you're getting that kayak, two things that I would say that you may not have to consider on other kayaks. One is the transportation. The other one is like a motor. Jessi, are you still there? I think you're.
Sorry, you cut out there. I couldn't make out what you said.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think your image froze for a second. I was saying like one of the top two things to consider when getting like a Bonafide XTR130 is, first of all, the transportation, and also this is not a kayak that you want to paddle your way into a spot, because you look at the price point. I think it's something like under $3,000, which is great considering how expensive kayaks are right now.
Right.
But when you think about, well, you're gonna have to add a motor and a battery on it, right?
Yeah, you have to. That's something also to take into consideration, which was different for me going from the autopilot to this kayak. You know, you get the autopilot, and the autopilot is ready to rock pretty much when you get it. You just slap a battery on it and go. This kayak, you have to fully rig it out, you know, as far as whatever type of propulsion you want on it, whether it's stern mounted, bow mounted, whatever it is, you're going to have to rig all of this stuff up. So that gave me a little pause, actually, because I've never actually fully rigged a kayak. You know, I've done some mods on a kayak, but I've never fully rigged a kayak. So that's something to take into consideration if someone's going to jump into this type of setup. And to your point about paddling, I mean, you could paddle it. Yeah. Definitely. I had to paddle it the other day. We got in such skinny water that I had to stow the motor and start paddling. We were in 8 inches of water, and you could paddle it, but it's not really, that's not what you want to be doing on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would think if you're fishing on waters, whether it's grassy lakes or skinny waters, that you feel that you're gonna have to paddle uh, through significant distance or time, this is probably not the kayak that you want. Again, nothing wrong with it. It's just the
Right.
nature of what it is. It's not if you need to paddle a lot or pedal,
Hmm.
there's a
Yeah.
lot better. Even Bonafide has them. Like you can look
Yeah.
into the Bonafide River 119, I think it is, and the
Yep. The
PWR
119, I
129.
think it
Their
is.
Skiff also is a great paddle kayak. Crescent Shoaling makes one. So that's also one thing to consider. With the so you have one motor or two motors on your kayak?
No, I have one motor because in our tournament circuits, we don't they don't allow two motors.
Yeah, then I haven't seen any tournaments right now
Yeah.
that allows two motors. Maybe there are some out there, and if anybody knows, they can put them in the uh, comment section. But I haven't heard of anything. I think if once we that's kind of like the next barrier where we feel like we're as far as tournaments, not to get too much away from the subject in hand, which is the review on the Bonafide. But just as a side note, I one of the things that worries me about kayak tournaments is like if at any point we allow two motors, there's not a there's not a dime worth of difference between a Bonafide XTR or a Wilderness System Pro Tactical 128 to a pond prowler or a plastic Johnny boat. Like it's
Yep.
essentially the same thing. I mean, you look at the Tactical Pro. I can't. I mean, there's not. I can't convince myself that that is a kayak, and you can name that a kayak
Right.
and not and named a Pelican Pond Prowler. I don't know what the name of the model
Yeah.
is,
The
but you
pound.
know
Yeah.
those little Johnny boats, plastic Johnny boats. It's
Yeah.
not a nickel worth of difference
Right.
between one or the other. And I think once you start allowing two motors, then that's it. We're done with kayak tournaments. It's gonna be cold plastic boat nation fishing
Yep.
or something like that. But
Yep.
anyways, that's just a side note on it.
Good
If it
point.
ever happens, it happens. We'll just have to adapt to it. But when you picked out a motor, what made you change? Consider the ball mount motor versus a trolling motor on the stern back of the kayak.
So that's I've never run a stern mounted motor. But
Mhm,
the reason I wanted the bow mounted is because so I like the spot lock feature.
mhm.
And I like to sometimes just sit down on the kayak and do some hands free fishing. I'm just steering with my feet and casting and whatnot. And the autopilot, when I had it, really spoiled me in that sense where I'd get to a spot, put on spot lock, and I'd get to fish. So I wanted the spot lock feature with the next kayak. So I knew that going with a bow mounted motor was going to be my ticket there, and because I knew that the power pole move was on the market, so I knew that that's what I was going to get.
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing with the bow mount is biggest complaint is like kind of like with the old town sportsman. It's like they're slow. Like everybody wants to stern, like an NK or Newport NK or what's the other Torpedo or
Torpedo, yeah.
because they're a lot faster. But how fast? I mean, the power pole move. Not read. I've heard stories from people. I think got a guy here in Texas, David Gurley, I think it is, that has one on the PA 17. I think he has one, not the PA 14. And I heard that the thing has so much thrust that it'll literally, if you put it full power, it'll nosedive that kayak. Has that happened to you? I mean, because obviously this is a trolling motor that's designed for big boats. It's
Yeah.
not designed for kayaks, but
Right.
yet we found a way to adapt it to kayaks.
Well,
How
well,
powerful is it, and what's the?
well, going to that, power pole made like the one I have is the power pole PV,
Yeah.
power pole move PV, and it's the 36-inch shaft, which power pole tried to cater to the kayak industry with that. To your point about the thrust, it's got tons of thrust to the point where, like, if I do put it on its highest speed setting, you will notice that the plastic up front, like underneath where the motor mount is at, it'll slightly start to flex. So I don't actually put it all the way up to its top speed. I run a 36 volt battery, So I'll get like 20 speed settings, and I take it up to about number 17, and it's great. I mean, I've taken it up to 20, and it's fine, but I try to be a little bit cautionary with that.
Yeah, the other thing is, and I was talking to Duke Trent from Mariner Sales. I think the shaft is like something like titanium. So it's like
Titanium.
if you hit a stump, that kayak may not survive. Like the motor
Yeah.
is not gonna be affected at all.
Yeah.
It'll break that plastic boat on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Plus, you'll be flying out.
That's the other thing. Yeah.
Especially where you fish out of, because I know, you know, not Texas, Florida is known for really, really shallow lakes and stumps and all that. So,
yeah, I mean, the stumps, we have some of that here. I mean, there's some more lakes up north that you'll run into like some real deal stumps. Down where I'm at, I don't know that I necessarily have that issue, but I mean, we do travel the state for the tournament sometimes, so it's something that's always in the back of my mind. You want to tread carefully a little bit.
All right, I got a couple of questions here from Joshua and Gerald Smith. I think Joshua is referring to the XTR. So he's asking, say, or give us an example of something you like about the XTR and something you dislike about the XTR. If there's anything you dislike about it, other than it's heavy.
I've touched on it already, but what I absolutely love on the XTR, it's a no-brainer, is the standing deck. Yeah. It's great. You have so much stability up there. It's really big. It's really wide. I think it's 40.5 inches in width. Even the deck in length is pretty substantial. I could put my feet forward, back. I have a lot of room to maneuver up there when I'm on the line with a fish or whatnot. And again, it's very stable. So whether I want to be up there or whether I want to actually come off the deck into the cockpit, grab the net, whatever it is, it's I love that part of the kayak. What I dislike about the kayak, I mean, I would say weight, but again, I trailer it, so it's not that big of a deal in that regard. And I would say some people have pointed it out. I'm not going to question, the designers of the kayak, but like everyone's had a little bit of an issue with like where you're mounting the transducer on the kayak.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot.
So I don't know that it necessarily bothers me, but yeah, I would have liked something where you see a lot of these tournament-ready kayaks where there's like a recess in the hull, and you could mount your transducer there, and it's nice and tucked away. Whereas this is more of that bass boat imitation where it's mounted on the transom. So that I would say I wish it would. Maybe they would change it if. I mean, I'm sure they've heard it. I just don't know if. Per their design or whatnot, if it's something that they could really do.
It's not I'm not a. Here I am talking like I'm a kayak designer. I'm not a kayak designer, but every single kayak has it. The Pro Tactical 128 has it.
Right.
Like every single kayak has it with the transducer mount. I would love to ask Hans Newts about this. From Bonafide is helped the primarily designer of this kayak. I would love to ask him like what happened there, but to me, it almost feel like they forgot to add it in the design, the final production, like completely forgot to add it because it's such an easy way to add it. Like I think most of their kayaks, I don't do Bonafide. I haven't fished out of a Bonafide. I'm pretty sure all the kayaks have that, like a transducer mount somewhere underneath the hull. Right. So for that one not to have it. And I've heard that complaint a lot. I've heard a lot of people say that, that loading and unloading end up, busting that transducer mount. It's just weird place. And for those that don't know, so it's basically like any bass boat not any, but most bass boats where you have that transducer sticking out of the back.
Yep.
When a boat, you're not going to be fishing shallow, so usually it's not a big deal. Right. But on a kayak, especially if you're not going to have a trailer, that's going to be an issue. There's going to be a point in time where you're going to break that off.
Yep.
I have to assume at some point they're going to redesign it in the next couple of years, because I think it's just an super easy design. It's just There's no
Yeah, I
reason
would.
why not to have it. Like every kayak has it.
Yeah, I would hope so. I mean, I think when you look at like reviews on social media, YouTube, what have you, I think those are the two biggest little nicks that people have with the kayak. It's where you mount the transducer, and even in the back of the kayak, where they made like this little ridge with the plastic where the battery goes, and it's not allowing people to. I don't think this is as big as a deal, but it's not allowing people to move their, like, let's say they're like their black pack further back in the kayak, so in turn it pushes their seat a little bit more forward and whatnot. So those are like the two biggest little nicks I've heard about the kayak. And I mean, hopefully they do something where they redesign that, but I honestly don't think it's a huge deal, and I haven't run into an issue yet where I could say, well, I really dislike this part about the kayak. But yeah, the transducer issue is what I would say right now stands out to me.
So Gerald, Three the Hard Way Fishing on social media, he was also, I think, Gerald is part of the Bonafide fishing team. And Gerald, if I'm wrong, please correct me on the comment section. But he's saying this is from Hans Snoots. Transducer placement is because of the weight of the kayaks, make it hard to get to it if you need to. I don't know if I mean I guess that's a reason. I don't think it's a valid reason. I mean, every kayak is heavy right now.
I never needed to get to my transducer on my old time. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, like I said, I don't necessarily have a big issue with it. And I trailer the kayak, so when I'm launching it, I don't have necessarily an issue where it might hit something. But I mean, if you're moving the kayak around, or like you said, if you get into some real shallow stuff, sometimes we take these kayaks into some gnarly stuff. So yeah, I mean, it could definitely damage. Whereas on the recess, it's protected by the hull of the kayak.
I've never once had to check anything out of my transducer on my Hobie P14. So I don't know about that. I mean, sounds like first glance, it sounds like makes sense, but I don't know, man. Like I think it outweighs the fact that it's so easy to break it off if it's not protected in somewhere in the hull. But again, I'm not, who am I to question Hans Snoots, who's completely revamped the Bonafide brand and gave it new life with everything that's going on. Huge shout out to what Hans Snoots is doing. That is beyond criticism. But yeah, that's one observation. So what about the power pole move? And one thing that you like about it, one thing that you don't like about it, if there's anything.
I can tell you what I don't like about it is the weight. It's a heavy motor. It's the 36-inch shaft one. My motor comes in at about 55 pounds. So it's on the heavy side.
Yeah.
But I'll take it because everything else is just, it's fabulous. It's a great motor, man. It's very powerful. And that's the reason I got it. It's pricey, very pricey. But you get what you pay for. I mean, I'm here in Florida. We fish a lot of grass. And the motor just eats through the grass, man. Whatever it is, hydrilla, lily pads, whatever, Kissimmee grass, whatever, it just chews through it.
That's good, because that's always another complaint about, having a motor on it if you're fishing on grassy lakes. Yeah. That's interesting. I didn't know that. You would think, it would make sense with all the thrust and power that motor brings. But yeah, definitely, that's another thing. If you're trailing your kayak, it's not a big of a deal. But if you are car topping it or back of your trailer, that's another 55 pounds that obviously you're not going to carry that. Right. But you'll have to remove it, and that's still another 55 pounds that you're going to have to carry it.
Yep.
And also the space on it. You have to have a big truck bed to put that puppy and all the accessories on it.
It's a lot of gear with the kayak and the motor. That's a lot of gear. Like you said, you're moving the kayak around, you're moving the motor around. It's a lot of weight to be thrown around. So yeah.
Gerald has another question. It says top speed. That's always an interesting question, because top speed is going to be depending on weather, current, wind.
Right.
But, let's just say on a flat, normal day with not a lot of wind, not a lot of current, not a lot of wave, what do you think is your top speed?
I've gotten the kayak up to 6.3.
Really? I thought it would be faster than that.
I thought initially it was going to be faster. I mean, if you watch like the ICAST videos last year, They were selling it like this thing was gonna go over 8 miles an hour.
The power
But
pole or the Bonafide?
no, the motor.
Oh,
Like
the motor. Okay.
they were talking about, you're gonna be able to put it on a Hobie and this and that, and you'll get like speeds of over 7.5 and maybe even 8 and whatnot. And um, it felt a little hard to believe, but I'm happy with the speed. I mean, it's pretty much double the speed that I'm used to on a kayak. So for me, it's day and night. But yeah, I've gotten it up to on that 20 setting. I've gotten it up to 6.3, and it wasn't even flat that day. There was a little bit of wind.
And what about normally? Like when you're like you said, because of the power of that motor, you don't necessarily you try not to get it to top speed. But so normally when you're cruising around, what's the speed that
So
you're
when I'm
cruising around?
cruising around, I'm anywhere between like 4.5 and 5 miles an hour, just cruising, just going from spot to spot. I mean, I could take it up a little bit more, but I like I said, I don't try to hit that 20 mark. I don't want to, especially if I'm making a long run. If I'm making a long run, I don't want to thrust it all the way to 20 because, like I said, at the end of the day, I'm in a plastic boat and it's so much thrust and power that it starts to flex the plastic just a little bit, and I don't want to, I don't want to push it too much in that
Yeah,
regard.
you could deform the plastic over time. Yeah, and like Marcial 305 mentions, ICAS they soar 8 miles per hour. It's also depending on the kayak that you have.
I think
I
so.
mentioned, yeah, no, it's gonna be
But also you gotta, it's how many kayaks could have that motor too. That motor
yeah.
is, I don't know that there's gonna be that many motors. I mean, that many kayaks that could suit that motor.
I can native X layer or I can't remember. Is it the X layer? The big native barge that they have. I forgot the name of that kayak. That's one of them that comes to mind.
Right.
PA14. I don't know if a
Yeah.
PA14 can handle that. I know a PA17. David Gurley has one.
Okay.
Um, uh, you know, what other? I don't even know if the Tactical Pro 128 would handle that. Although one thing about the Tactical Pro, when you look at it, the whole design is they put a lot of emphasis on the bow. Like it's like a catamaran style,
Yeah,
and
I
it's
saw that.
just wider, taller on the front than it is on the back. So that might
Yeah,
be
we can
one
hold
that
it.
maybe hold it together. Especially with that catamaran design, you may be able to actually hit full power, and not have that big
Good
of an
point.
issue than any other kayak.
Right.
Titan X. That's what the name of the. Thank you, Corey.
Yeah, Titan
Titan
X,
X.
I'm sure could take that.
Yeah, that is a barge, man.
That's a barge.
I got in a Titan X one, and I'm like, good lord, I feel like I'm in a semi
That's
truck.
that's the kayak I was actually looking at when I was gonna get out of the autopilot, and then I just happened to run across the Bonafide, and it was that's all she wrote.
Yeah, making a turn on that Titan is crazy, man. It's feel like I'm going around the block just to make a UE on that thing. But it's definitely a platform for fishing.
Yeah.
Um, what mileage as far as do you get with the power pole? Like you mentioned 36 volt. What amp? 36 volt and how many amps on your battery?
I run a 50 amp,
Oh, 50, really? 50 amp.
and I could tell you, I went out the other day with Marvin, my buddy Marvin, and we went out and we were on the water by 7, pushing out, and we got back to the ramp at 2:30. So it's not necessarily my entire full day of, like, let's say, a tournament, but it's
Like
close.
almost an 8 hour tournament, yeah.
I had 73% battery life left.
And that's relative, because you can be underwater, but you not
Right,
moving
and
your
I
front.
mean, listen. To be fair, we didn't make a long trek, but like to give you another example, 2 or 3 weeks ago we had a tournament at Lake Garcia here in Florida, and that we were on the water. We were staged up at 5:30 in the morning, so ran out, made a decent run in the morning, fished the entire day, did everything, ran around the lot. I was running around like crazy looking for fish there, and got back to the ramp, and at the end of the day I had 48% battery life on the kayak. So I had half the life left after an entire tournament full day of fishing on
And we're
because 36 volt is very efficient.
yeah. And what's usually I don't know this, I'm a genuine question. What's the recommended battery for the power pole move? Is that the
It's
36
either
12 50 amp?
It's if you're on their website, they you have the option of either a 24 or a 36 volt.
All right. And how many amps do they recommend?
I'm not sure that they have a recommendation
Oh,
for
for
the
amp. All right.
amperage. Yeah, it's just 24 or 36 volt batteries.
15 amps not that bad. I mean, for I would think with a trolling motor with that power and a kayak that big, 50 amp wouldn't get you more than 4 or 5 hours. But
Yeah, I was
yeah, that's
hesitant
pretty
at
impressive.
first because you hear. Yeah, I was hesitant at first because you hear the 50 amp hour, but from what I don't know. I'm not too savvy when it comes to the battery technology, but they've told me that 50 amp hour is going to be more than enough to power that thing up, just because of the efficiency of the 36 volt. So the two long days I've had on it, I've been really impressed with the battery life on the kayak.
How's the spot lock on the NK? Do you utilize that a lot? I say
Yeah,
spot lock. I don't know if that's a like a
yeah,
trademark of any brand. So I
uh,
apologize if I'm
yeah. I
using a
don't.
trademark.
That's a good point. I don't know either, but yeah, basically their anchoring system with the
Yeah.
motor. Yeah, I use that. I use that a lot. I mean, some days more than others, obviously, but I definitely use it. How is it on the motor? It's great. I will say that. So this motor comes with. So you could download an app, the PowerPo app, and you could connect remotely with your phone via Bluetooth. And the motor actually has settings of how sensitive you want it to, basically how aggressive you want those RPMs to kick up. Because I can tell you that the very first time I put it on the water, I was just messing around with the motor and I put it on spot lock. My boat started turning, violently because the setting was very high. So you have to tweak those settings on the motor and get it exactly where you want. But after that, after I set it up, it's perfect.
Yeah, that's interesting because you would think a lot of the targeted consumer for a power pole move is actually boaters, right? Not kayak anglers. So a
Right.
lot of times you would, I'm assuming out of factory settings are going to come to move a, you know,
Yeah.
20, 25
Football.
feet foot feet bass boat, not
Yeah.
a kayak. So that, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
What when you compare it, obviously the speed we're not going to compare, but when you compare the spot lock and the mobility, the navigation aspect of that kayak with that power pole move compared to the Old Town Sportsman,
Okay.
what are
Um,
you what are your thoughts?
Completely different experience. And again, I like I've said, I don't have necessarily bad things to say about the Old Town rig. It's just like you brought up, the speed is obviously a factor. So experience wise, it's a lot, man. Because when you're in grass, when you're in heavy grass, say like the autopilot that you're getting, I don't know, 3.7, 3.8 at best on the motor on 10 speed. When you're in a lot of grass, that grass will bog down the motor. So you're going to go even slower. And at some point, you got to pull that motor and unclog it. I don't necessarily have to do that with this motor. I mean, if you run this motor at a very slow setting in really thick grass, like any motor, you'll have to just kick off some of the grass. But you give it some decent speed, and you're going to chew through any grass you're going to pretty much run into. So the fact that I have the more speed and the fact that the grass is not necessarily slowing me down, it's a night and day experience for me on the water.
Yeah. Another good point that I forgot to mention is with the Bonafide XTR130, that platform allows you to add more pounds to your kayak versus
Yeah.
another kayak where you say, well, you can add 300 pounds. So if you're adding, add, however much, like I weigh around 200 pounds, I'm probably lying. I'm probably a little bit more than that, but I'll say that. And then you add a 50-pound motor, 20-pound battery, stuff like that. It adds up. But when the Bonafide XCR, that's not really a big issue
Right.
because I think it's like 500 max capacity or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's the other factor that allows that Bonafide also to handle that power pole move. Going back to the Bonafide, do you use power poles at all? Because if you have that spot lock, do you really need power poles? Do you have power poles as well? Do you use
Oh
one or
yeah.
two?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, for those that don't know, when you spot lock, you're spot locking. When your boat spot locks, you're spot locking into the wind.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
going to always turn you into the wind. So there's going to be times where if you want to fish with the wind at your back, and obviously you're in deep enough water or shallow enough water, rather, you're just going to pull down. You'll pull down. It'll turn your boat, with the wind, and you'll fish with the wind at your back. Whereas when you want to fish something and the wind's at your front, you're going to spot lock. So that's kind of the cool duality of having them both. And the cool thing about the power pole move is that um, I don't need another remote controller to use my power pole anchor in the back. Everything's done with the remote from the power pole move trolling motor. You can just pair it with your trolling with your power pole stakeout pole in the back, and you're good to go.
Nice. What's your favorite accessory on your Bonafide XTR other than the motors? As far as accessory, how do you have it rigged up? I see some guys that put like the Yak Attack stage rods. One thing that I love about the Hobie in general is their use of space is amazing. And I see now Old Town is kind of doing the horizontal storage rods thing. I think Hobie has the best design as far as using the space that it has available. With the Bonafide, obviously, there's a lot more room and
Yeah.
a lot, it could be, I guess, a little bit simpler. But I see a lot of guys adding like the Jack Attack stage rod holders, which is like extends out. Or
Yeah.
what do you use? What other accessory do you use? How's the, this, as far as taking your rods with you, how do you store them? Do you feel the need to add other stuff like that, or does it
So
keep it
I've
simple?
always, yeah, I've always been intrigued with staging them on the side like that horizontally. But I mean, again, we're in a lot of grass. I'm in a lot of like reeds, cattails, and stuff like that. And I've already spoken with a couple of people that have them that way, and they're running into issues with their
Yeah.
rods banging into that grass. So I have them. I have them in the black pack in the back. Vertical.
All right, cool. Do you often do like one thing, again, going back to the P8 is the horizontal storage, just because low hanging branches, low hanging overheads, bridge, and all that, it just makes it a lot simpler.
Yeah.
Do you run into that issue a lot, having all those rods sticking up? How many rods do you take, by the way, when you're fishing?
Anywhere between 8 to 10. This kayak also has on the gunnels on the side an area where you could stage some rods horizontally. Um, they say probably two on each side you could fit, and I've done it. I wouldn't recommend it though, because I personally I don't like when my rods and my guides are all rubbing up against each other.
Yeah.
So I would suggest probably one on each side. But could you do two? Yeah, you could do two on each side. That's already four, and plus whatever you could put in the back. But I normally take anywhere between 8 to 10 rods with me.
And without the rod, the kayak design, without the stage rod holders from Attack, I feel like I've seen it. I was like, man, that rod is really close to the edge. Like one inadvertent kick, and that rod is going into the water.
Yeah, I've never tried them, but like I said, I'm just getting feedback from some guys here that use them. It makes a lot of sense why I would kind of stay away from them, because just we run into a lot of thick stuff out here, so I don't want to run the risk of breaking them.
Yeah, that's one thing about it. About the Bonafide, and again, not criticizing. I'm not. At least I don't know if Jessi, if you are, but I'm not Bonafide fishing team, so I have to give objective opinion what I like and what I don't
Right,
like.
of
I
course.
see what I see. It's not. It's again huge credit to Hans Snoots. We bow down to his designing skills. We don't want to come off as haters on it. We're just talking
Oh,
about what things we like and don't like. So give
absolutely.
you, at the end of the day, this podcast is for the listeners, subscribers, not subscribers, listeners, or people that follow me on social media, so they get more informed information. That's going to be the negative and the positive of everything. Even a Hobie, which I'm a huge fan of. I'll give
Right.
you the negatives and positives of those too. So please, if anybody's watching, listening, don't take it as we're hating on it. We're just giving you information as we see it and perceive it. And that's why I love having Jessi here, because he can give us an honest opinion, what he loves and doesn't, what he loves about it, what maybe he doesn't love about it, because he has the freedom to talk about it without any strings
Yep.
attached to it. So I appreciate your honest opinion on that, Jessi.
Yep.
What are some of the low key things that you're pleasantly surprised about the Bonafide XTR that maybe you didn't think about when you bought it?
I can tell you that the 360 seat, I'm really impressed with that. I've never had a swivel seat, and I absolutely love it. That's something that I'm not gonna say that I didn't that I wasn't looking forward to it. I was kind of skeptical on it, and I actually really like it. Really like it. I'm really impressed with the seat. It's real comfortable. You could, even when you're reaching to the back to your box, just the fact that you're able to turn on the chair is great. If you want to fish off the side of your kayak, everyone knows that you've made casts towards the sides of your boat, and being able to just turn your chair is a great feature it has.
That's cool. Yeah, the swivel seat, I've heard a lot of good things about it. Like people are kind of pleasantly surprised because it's not something that comes to mind. There's so many stuff to love about that kayak, especially because it's kind of unique. We have a question. I want to get to a question for Hector Figueroa, but I also have a question on the Instagram. JG on Calves 55 says, "Can you fish with two people comfortably on the XTR 130?" Now, I did a video on that on the setup that the gentleman that bought that $17,000 build for the XTR, he added an extra seat, which you can. That's an option, I think, on Bonafide where you can actually purchase a separate seat that goes in the front. Do you know anybody that's been using it? It looks comfortable enough for two people.
I personally haven't used it. I'd like to do that sometime in the future to perhaps get my kids on there. But yeah, it has that option where you could purchase the additional seat. You remove the that wider front cover that it has. You attach the seat there, and I mean, there's plenty of videos online of guys going out. There's even a video of I think it's a gentleman from Bonafide and Jordan Lee, the pro fisherman.
Oh yeah, I saw that one.
They went out and they went gator hunting on, I think it was like Lake Toho or something. So one of these lakes, but it looks comfortable. So I would think you could definitely do it.
Yeah. Like I said, I made a video on it, but it was just at the kayak store. It wasn't on the water. But it looks like enough legroom for whoever's sitting on the back seat of it. It looked comfortable. Again, I haven't tried it, but there you go. Thank you for asking the questions on Instagram. Honestly, I can't. I don't have a way of posting the questions like on the live stream, like I do in Facebook and YouTube. But if I get a chance to glance at Instagram and I see your questions, I'll definitely address it. So Hector Figueroa has a question. He says, "How do you feel with the height of the seat and how comfortable is the seat?" So we talk about the swivel ability, 360 on the seat. What about the height and the?
That's another great point he brought up. And I've talked to all my buddies about it. When I was actually one of my first impressions about the kayak, how high I am off the water, and I absolutely love that. So when you're sitting on the seat, you're high on the water, which I love because while you're traveling, you could you on my other kayak, I had mounts, I had seat risers rather, and even at that, the seat that I have now, I sit substantially higher on this kayak. Not to mention that when you get up on the standing deck, you feel really good up there. You have a really good height for sight fishing. It's amazing. So yeah, to his question, I personally love the height that I have on the water with the kayak.
And how comfortable is it? Like after fishing 8 hours, how does your back feel about it? Do you add a kayak cushion to it, or?
I did. I added a kayak cushion. I think you should, regardless of the seat you get. I added a kayak cushion, but the seat in itself, I got out the first time with it without a cushion, and I fished with it, and I actually got back after like 4 hours, and I was perfectly fine. But I slapped the kayak cushion on there, and I haven't had any issues with the seat. I think it's pretty comfortable.
Do you use the kayak cushion just to sit, or you also have it for your backrest?
I've always used it to sit. I actually have the backrest on the way. I had reached out to them, and they're actually gonna be sending me a cushion. So I'm gonna try one out on my back. I've never had one on my back, but I've always put it on the seat, and I highly recommend them. They're pretty comfortable.
Nice. What other stuff do you like about the XTR? And again, if there's for those that are watching on the live stream, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube, if you have any questions, we're talking about the Bonafide XTR130. If you joined us late, and the Power Pole Move trolling motor.
I would tell you the open like cockpit design. That I find it. So this kayak is essentially a foot shorter than what I used to have. I used to have a 13 and a half foot kayak. Now I have a 12 and a half foot kayak. And I find that I would argue, easily double the amount of space more now on this kayak than I had on the other kayak. That open cockpit space is great. I'm able to store a lot of stuff under the seat. Something we didn't get to is that front on the standing deck, that front hatch, or rather the part they designed to technically stand on. That part is in itself, it's a hatch where you could use it as a battery compartment in there if you like, or you could store some tackle or anything like that. So that provides an enormous amount of space as well. So that's something that I've been telling everybody I'm absolutely in love with the kayak with the amount of space that I have to store all of my gear.
Hector also has a question: primary and secondary stability. Your opinion on that? Yeah, I mean, with the primary stability on it, I don't even think secondary stability is going to be an issue. But what about the stability of it that you like?
I really haven't had what I can tell you is that the motor, this particular motor, plays a part with the stability in the sense that, like I said earlier, if you need to carefully adjust the settings on the motor, because I mean, you could put that motor on any other kayak, and we're going to talk about the same thing, that you need to properly set up that motor, because if you don't, then yeah, if it throws you around, you'll fall off of any kayak. But as far as stability, like I've stood on the deck of this thing and chopping through grass or making sharp turns on pretty high speed settings, and I haven't had an issue with stability per se. I mean, it's a kayak. At the end of the day, you'll get your kayak legs, if you will, on it, but it's fine. I find it to be extremely stable.
Yeah. Have you had any need to test the secondary stability? And for those, I'll try to explain it. I'm not great at explaining it. I got the explanation once from Jeff Little, who's also great at designing kayaks, and Drew Gregory touched on it as well. So I'm going to try to explain it as best as I can. And some of you out there on the comment section can explain it better than me. Please put in the comment. But basically, primary stability is the kayak. How stable is the kayak? How hard is it to flip it? Secondary stability is more of the whole design. Some whole designs make it for the kayak fights to not get flipped. It tries to rights itself to avoid flipping. That's what they call the secondary. So there are some kayaks out there. For example, I'll give you a best example that I can find. And again, I haven't fished a lot of kayak. Hobie makes kayaks that are great at secondary stability. Like the Hobie PA14, you'd be surprised that it's not primary stability is not what you probably, and I'm being honest, I would have thought that the PA14 stability, primary stability would have been more than it was. It's the secondary stability that impressed me, because to put it in a practical sense, when I move around the kayak, I feel like you said, like the kayak legs under you, like this feels a little stable. But the more you move on it, you feel like, okay, it moves, but it really rights itself. Like it's very hard to flip it. That's why it kind of like the secondary stability kind of plays its part. When it feels like it's leaning too far, it'll fight, because again, the whole design to right itself. So that's kind of like a difference. How, for those that are wondering what is the difference between primary stability and secondary stability, Jessi, if you have a better, simpler way to explain it, feel free.
Yeah,
what I can do.
Yeah, what I can tell you is, like, when I put it on the water the first time, like I mentioned earlier, I got on the kayak and I tried to rock it over to the side. I stood at the very tip of the boat. I stood at the very rear of the boat. I've stood on the sides, and it's what they say. I mean, if you fall off, it's it's more so that you're falling off the kayak. I don't that boat's not going to tip over. It just
Yeah.
it's not like I told you. I hit when I was messing around with the settings on the trolling motor. I had hit spot lock, and it just started. The boat just started wailing all over the place, and luckily I was sitting down because had I been standing up, I would have fallen off the kayak, obviously. So I was sitting down, but even at that, I mean, my body leaned over one way, and I was I went back to center rapidly. Like I
Yeah.
didn't feel like I was going over the boat or anything like that. So that's as much as I could speak on it too, because like I said, I haven't, I you know, I tested it out on the water that one time, messing around with the settings on the trolling motor, and I really haven't had an issue after that on the water with it.
Another question that we have again from Hector Figueroa says, would it be recommended for rivers like Susquehanna or the Colorado? Interesting, because Susquehanna, we think of it like we see on the tournaments for the used to be Hobie BOS Bassmaster, I think has done
Right.
the Susquehanna as well. We see all that shallow 2 foot water and all that, but the Susquehanna, there's the majority of it. There's a lot of like mile wide of the river, so that's kind of relative. But if I'm understanding correctly, what Hector is asking is like when we're talking about shallow moving water where there's a lot of like maybe rocks or laydowns that stick up. Uh, have you experienced that? I think you mentioned you went to shallow water with it and paddle it. What are your thoughts on that
Yeah, I don't,
particular?
I don't, I, I don't do rivers much, but I don't know that I would, I don't know that I would say that the kayak is, excuse me, that the kayak is geared for, say,
You lost Jessie there.
like
There
more
we
like a
go.
dedicated rig. Sorry. What I was saying is that I think that, I don't know that it's a river kayak. Um, I've seen, people. I see more dedicated river rigs, and I don't know that this one fits the mold for that.
Yeah.
Like I said, I roll, I paddled it. You could do it, but I don't know that the kayak is necessarily designed for, you know, rowing for long periods of time.
Yeah, and going back to Hector says fast moving waters. That's what he meant. Yeah, I haven't tried it. Just looking at the design, just because it is so wide when you compare it to the Bonafide skiff
Yep.
or the Bonafide River 129, 119. I can't remember
Yeah,
what it is.
119.
Um, those are kayaks that are designed for turning, and actually Bonafide is not really known for their ability to turn. For example, like the Jackson Kuza is a great kayak, and again, you think about why that is. It's Eric Jackson's uh, pet project when he and Eric Jackson is one of the best whitewater kayakers in that we've had for years here in the United States.
Right.
He was the founder of Jackson Kayaks, and their kayaks are very specifically designed, especially I think the Jackson Cruise is the model for turning into
Fast.
waters, fast moving waters. Of course, it's in their DNA. Bonafide, the RVR is great, but it's not even the best kayak to kind of maneuver through fast moving waters. When we're talking about making big turns or I know there's some technical terms on how do you turn and all that. I don't know all of it.
Yeah.
I'm not a whitewater
Yeah.
kayaker, but I would definitely. I'm gonna bet that that is probably not the ideal kayak that you want on those waters. If you're fishing fast moving waters,
Yeah. I don't think so.
that kayak is probably not the best option.
No, I don't.
Yeah,
I would agree with you.
yeah. I don't think you'll have much fun. There's a lot better options at a lower price than that. Plus, it's just like the other thing is like when you're moving into shallow water, there's some we've seen that at the Hobie BOS in Susquehanna, where they're actually one of the was the only or one of the few tournament waters where they allowed you to portage because it was so shallow, especially on summer. Like there's no way you can maneuver safely without
Right.
having to get out of the kayak, and I can't imagine portaging that beast. Like I've
No.
done that with the Hobie PA on the Brazos River. Good lord, it's not fun at all. It's not fun pulling that thing through current. So I can't imagine that one will be any different. All right. RVR 119. I know I get them wrong half the time. With Bonafide, that's kind of like their thing. They put the first 3 letters and then 3 numbers, and I always get them mixed up. It's my what do you call it, dyslexia in me. But anyways, Jessi, I don't want to take too much of your time. I know you're a family man. If there's any other questions from our audience, please put in the comment section. But anything else that we haven't covered, Jessi, that you want to talk about, either the Bonafide or the power pole move?
No, I mean, I think we've covered all the bases on it, man. Like I said, it's I find it to be so far a very impressive kayak. Like I stated earlier, I feel that the design, the platform of it is very unique. I don't think there's anything like it out there right now. And honestly, I hope that pushes other companies too. I hope I've been saying that. I really hope that pushes other manufacturers to. I'm not gonna say to copy it, but to push that envelope, because I love it. I think it's a great design, and I find it to be very impressive. It's been a great experience so far.
Yeah, definitely. Big shout out to Hans Newts for an amazing job he's done in Bonafide. I don't want to say resurrected Bonafide, but definitely brought it up. Like, there was a time where it was only Hobie and Old Town, and everything else was just secondary. And I think Bonafide has thrown themselves to the top of that list, pretty much, with their design, and a lot of it, goes credit to Hans Newts and his team. So big shout out to them. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Oh, Jessi, before we let you go, plug in, where can people follow you on social media and all that, if you want, or any sponsorships, staff?
Well, yeah, so I'm on the promotional staff for Senko Sticks. It's a rod company here in South Florida. They're out of the West Palm Beach area. I highly recommend people to go check them out. SenkoSticks.com. Great American-made rods. So go give them, check them out. Go give them a follow on Instagram as well, Senko Sticks. You can follow me on Instagram. I'm on my Instagram handle is Bass Patriot.
Awesome. Jessi, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you having me, man.
Nah, man, my pleasure. I hope I'm going to try to make it an iCast this year, and I hope to get to hang around with the Florida crew. I know I got kicked out of the chat. I was on a trip in Peru to South America. When I got back, I'm like, oh dang, I got kicked out of the
chat. Was dead, man. There was no action going on in there.
It was my fault. I wasn't.
Just everybody's tending to their business, man.
I was. It was funny because I got back from the trip. Like, man, the chat has been kind of quiet. It's usually kind of noisy. I mean, it's full of Puerto Ricans and Cubans. It's always noisy. And I was like, oh crap, I got kicked out. I was like, I deserve it. I wasn't being productive on the chat, but I miss talking to you guys.
Yeah, same here, man. Look forward to speaking to you soon, man. All
right. Well, you guys take care over there in Florida. For those out there fishing, remember, wear your PFDs. Way too many accidents to start the year. I've already heard of 3 either anglers or kayakers here in Texas at the start of 2025 in different situations that actually have passed away due to drowning. That's not even counting the boat accidents that we've heard through nationwide. So please wear your PFDs. It's been windy. I don't know how it's been over there in Florida, but man, everyone I talked to all over the United States, this spring has been crazy wind.
Yep. Super windy.
I don't know what's going on, but anyways, follow us on social media, Bass, Kayak, and Beers. Remember, you can listen to our podcast on every podcast streaming platform. Live shows on Thursdays, YouTube, Facebook, and we also have the Advanced Kayak Angler, which airs every Wednesday with Kurt Smith. He usually talks to tournament anglers about tips and tricks to help you catch more fish. Thank you for watching, listening. Give us your 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Helps us with the growth of the podcast. Have a great night, everyone. Peace out.
Take care.